So a lot of times companies hire the most successful person to become a manager.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
See it a lot, though.
Huh?
See it a lot, though.
Exactly. And so I had more, because my dad was a general manager and all this stuff. I learned a lot from him. So I was a better manager than a salesperson.
Matt Woolley Podcast.
So our guest today is Randy Hurban. Thank you for being here, Randy.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Yes. Always wonderful to talk to you. So who is, for our listeners out there, who is Randy Hurban? Randy Hurban is a husband and father. Randy's background includes professional sales rep at McNeil Consumer and Specialty Pharmaceuticals, associate director, marketing and sales manager at, how do you pronounce this, Ciba-Geigy or something?
Ciba-Geigy.
Ciba-Geigy, all right. Associate director at Novartis, is that correct? All right. My grammar's not failing me yet.
No.
VP recruiting and sales operations at Innovex, VP global head of business and market development at Quintiles.
Quintiles.
All right.
Very good.
Business owner. You have a lot of very hard to pronounce companies in your background. Business owner, Stepping Stone Children's Academy. Several of the Northwest Arkansas listeners are familiar with that, I assume. Okay. CEO of Sway Consulting, past CEO of First Tee, another great organization, and currently you're a partner at Moxy, as well as Mimi and Dudes Enterprises. Yeah. Did I miss anything?
That's got it.
All right, perfect. So first things first, what I'm hearing is sales, and a lot of operations.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Before we jump into that, tell me, who is Randy? Where did Randy grow up? What is Randy's background?
Oh, great question. I actually grew up in Chicago, and my family was relocated to Heber Springs, Arkansas in 7th grade.
Okay.
So we went from 3 million to 3,000. Culture shock.
Well, yeah. Couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah, right. So that was a great experience. And then went to high school at Heber Springs. Learned to play golf there.
Nice.
Played football and everything else, but I love golf.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah. Still not good at it, but I try.
Neither am I, but we'll keep on going.
That's right. So we moved back to Chicago my senior year in high school.
Okay.
And I promised my dad I'd move back with the family if I could go to the U of A.
Awesome.
And so he said,
What made you want to go to the U of A?
I loved Arkansas.
Okay.
That's
a good excuse.
Yes. I loved it. And I love the people. And Arkansas is small state, but great people. And so he said, sure.
Awesome.
So I came back to school, studied business, and I always wanted to be a pharmaceutical rep because my mom was a nurse. And
so you always wanted to be a pharmaceutical rep?
Yeah, back in the 70s and 80s, pharmaceutical sales was like the primo.
That's awesome. So, how did you know that? I mean, I don't. Now, I'm not being offensive when I say this. You know, there's a lot of young men, even little boys, like, yeah, I want to be a cop, or yeah, I want to be a fireman, or yeah, I want to be, I want to be a pharmaceutical rep.
Very true.
All right, so. You saw it as a great opportunity for a career early on then.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you always had a vision set for that?
Well, my mom worked at a general surgeon
right.
family practice office, so I'd go in.
Familiar with
I'd see it, and she'd talk about them and how professional and how smart they were. And
that's awesome. That is a one-of-a-kind story. I can honestly say I've never heard anybody say. That's great. Okay. So even in college, that was your thought process.
That's
I'm getting
correct.
at, and this is what I'm going to do. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So you go to U of A. All right. So take us from there.
So when I graduated in 1982, interest rates were almost 20%. Job market was no bueno.
Great financial place to be.
Okay. So it was rough.
Right.
It was very hard getting a job. And so
Did other people suffer? And was it like a thing like you and your friends where everybody was struggling?
oh yeah, it was
bad.
absolutely
Bad.
It
Okay.
was tough. It was very tough.
Okay.
So it took me 6 months, and I kept looking and looking, and I want to get in pharmaceutical. They say you have to have experience. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get some sales experience. So I got lucky and worked for a company called Georgia Pacific, selling paneling, plywood, and stuff like that in Michigan.
Oh, there's another one on the resume.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how was that? How was that? Was that like jumping from the, from the frying pan to the fire kind of thing? Okay.
Living in Detroit.
Yeah. Okay.
Middle of winter is not fun.
Yeah.
So my wife, we got married, and she moved up there with me. And so I just learned how to sell. I learned how to be creative. And it was a distribution center. And I am not a Mr. Goodwrench. I don't know anything. Handling, plywood, anything. But I learned how to sell.
Nice.
So
was that when you say you learned how to sell? How did you learn how to sell? Like the School of Hard Knocks, mentorship, what?
both.
Okay.
It really was. It was what is a distribution center, and to sell lumber in the winter is hard to do. Right. So you
get innovative.
in northern Michigan, you got real innovative.
You got to want it. That's awesome. Okay. Where did you transition in from? I mean, was it so you worked there, but you told me you wanted to be a pharmaceutical rep. So your eye was always on that pie while that was going on.
Absolutely.
So you were as you were doing that, you were kind of digging around trying to find that right opportunity. Then, right? Is that it?
So what happened is I actually got an interview with a McNeil Pharmaceuticals. And the district manager at the time said, man, I like what you bring, but you need to go learn how to sell. So I followed his lead. And so that's when I went and found a job with Georgia Pacific.
I see.
But I always
You weren't ready yet, but you
I
stayed in contact with him.
bingo.
Yeah, got it.
For a year and a half.
Don't give up.
And I learned as much as I could about McNeil at the time. And so when my time came,
Nice.
I was ready to roll.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. So walk us through what it is to be a pharmaceutical rep. What is that?
It's a lot different today than it was back then.
Okay.
So back then you would make 8 to 10 calls on physicians, 3 on pharmacies, and 1 on a hospital a day.
Okay.
And so we were more knowledgeable about disease states and drugs than physicians were, believe it or not. They trained us so hard because when we would make claims and we had to back them up with we had studies and everything back in the day. And so you had to be sharp, and you couldn't pull anything over a physician's
Right. No quick ones.
No good.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, what kind of sales? I mean, because obviously it goes back to the sales essentials. I'm assuming is knowing your product, but what extra layers were there for trying to? I'm just trying to. The reason why I'm saying it's got to have a lot of layers of that onion because I'm thinking. Just in today's time, just speaking of the drugs alone, and that was a pivotal time for pharmaceuticals because that was kind of, let's just face the facts. The 80s were, marketing on steroids. That was a time for marketing and sales. We'd seen stuff before. Don't get me wrong. I've studied the greats. I've watched the progression.
Right.
But the 80s is just a propellant. And I'm a kid of the 80s. I totally buy into it. I'm the guy that you're talking to, the guy that loves He-Man and Thundercats, so I get it. I get the sale of product, but and there's a lot of epidemics going on too. That's around the time of the AIDS epidemic.
Absolutely.
And stuff like that. So, there's a lot of scare out there too. So, walk me through. I mean, what is it? What was the preparation that you guys had? I mean, obviously you had to study the product. You had to know what the product was going to affect. But I mean, how did you go about, conveying that, to the people that don't know, or trying to sell them like this is the direction? Give me some insight to that. I'm just trying to figure out what was in your head as you were trying to push these products, and what did you have to do to have that understanding?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm rambling.
No, so not only did we have to learn products, but we had to learn how to sell.
Right.
And so the training programs that pharmaceutical companies put you through it took a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
Now, you'd go first 3 weeks, you'd come back after several months, and you would go through level 2, and you were continuously training and learning how to sell.
What does that look like? Can you remember some of the stuff you went through? I mean, what were they doing? Like, I mean, I'm assuming that there's a psychological play that they run you through.
Huge.
Okay. But let's talk about some of that.
So you would do a lot of role play.
Okay.
And you were on video. Okay. And so you had someone playing the doctor and you're the rep. And so you're role playing with that doctor and you're on camera. And so it's hard seeing yourself struggle.
Right.
But it builds your confidence when you can see yourself against other people.
Right.
Okay. So you really had to learn and experiment and study. And
so it's kind of like, so they put you through these, tests, and then they'd force you to go back and watch yourself klutz through them, essentially.
Absolutely.
Okay, so was there ever a point, though, I mean, that, there's a lot of practice in that, obviously, and I see it as no different than when you're, practicing ballet or anything. You're watching your stuff, you're watching your movements, you're watching the flow. Was there a point where you started watching and you're like, I got this guy? You're like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And I'm assuming that's what it's for. It's to show you what you're, it's kind of like I tell everybody when stuff like that, it's like, you ever listen to yourself back on tape?
Yes.
I think I sound okay, and then I listen to myself back on tape, and I sound like a nasally, tenory Matthew McConaughey. I'm like, this isn't good.
That's funny.
So they ran you through that gauntlet. What type of studying were you doing building up to that?
Oh gosh, anatomy, physiology. They had modules, and it was all book.
Oh wow!
And then you would go spend time in the field with other reps, hospital reps, who'd call them major institutions, teaching hospitals. You would spend time with physicians and their staff, learning.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was very intense. But one of the best, I'll never forget it, one of the best sales training I've ever been in was you're a rep and you're presenting and trying to convince a doctor who was one of the main trainers. And so they talked about across the desk. Okay? But behind you, there were 5 or 6 other reps. And so the other trainers would come in and give the objections to the physician. You had no idea what those objections were.
Wow.
But they also gave those objections to the 6 panelists behind you, the other reps that are learning. So as you're struggling, trying to convince that physician, trying to sort out the objection and overcome it, the other ones are seeing all the nonverbal and cues that you're missing. And wow. Everybody learned from it.
That's brilliant.
Right? And so that helped build your confidence. And sales is, honestly, in the pharmaceutical business, I had it on my dashboard, is break habits. Because doctors are the biggest creatures of habit. And if you can break a habit, however you do it, you'll win the game.
Break habit.
It's habit.
Wow. That's awesome. All right. So let's dig further into that. How did you identify a habit? I mean, is it standard? Is it like a standard thing that you saw all the time, or I mean, what would you define as a habit?
Well, if a doctor saw a patient with arthritis, they had their regimens where they would try this drug over that one.
I see.
Right?
I see.
And so all you're trying to do is break it.
So what would part of your sales tactic be then? I assume you have to know your competitor products too, and then how to poke holes through them then.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So universal sales knowledge there. But man, gosh, what a plethora of products though.
Oh,
My gosh. So did they have certain people dedicated to certain drugs?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so it wasn't just like, shop the catalog. We had specific people. How many drugs at one time were you repping?
I would have like 5 or 6.
Okay.
At max, yeah.
Okay. And how long would those tenures, if you will, last for each drug? I mean, did they flip them in and out, or is it something consistent, or was it just market dependent?
It is market, but it was more like pain. We would treat pain, and so that was a little bit quicker in terms of new products coming in. And if you do chronic, like hypertension, high blood pressure, cholesterol, those products are going to stay with you a little bit longer.
Right, okay. Those are the ones you want to stay around to.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So definitely put through the sales gauntlet then. So I see looking at your, resume here, you're getting up to, Innovex. What stage is this when you're in Innovex? Because I see you're both in recruiting and sales operations.
Yeah.
So you're top level trying to make sure that we have the right guys and the right guys are doing the right things and everybody's firing on all cylinders together.
That's correct.
Okay, about what time frame was this?
That was late 90s.
Okay.
So I had Ciba-Geigy and Sandoz merged to create Novartis.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
And so Novartis, one of the largest
Yes.
drug companies in the world. So in the 90s, the pharmaceutical industry went from like 10,000 reps to 60,000.
Really?
Yeah.
Wowzers.
It was crazy because everybody wanted to promote blockbuster drugs so pharmaceutical companies could get really rich.
Wow.
So you had pods of reps, and you would call on same physicians but with different drugs.
Oh my gosh. That's insanity.
Yes, it is.
That's a lot of coverage too.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of influence as well.
Correct.
Wow.
And that's where the value of the reps, in my opinion, the value of them into the marketplace got diminished.
I see.
Because you couldn't have the dialogue and you couldn't present the stuff and chat with doctors about real stuff. They just wanted to get their samples and go on your way.
So am I correct in saying that is kind of the standard where it sits now? Or is it more or less?
It's thinned out a little bit.
Thinned out a little bit.
Absolutely.
So they saw there was flaws to the model potentially.
Correct.
I see. But you were having to manage all that at the time.
That's correct.
Sweet Mother Mary.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what was that like? That had to have been very painstaking.
It was. So it really happened at the management level, right? So I was a district manager at the time, and so I had 3 other counterparts. So we had to be locked in on who's calling on who, when. So we do cycles. And so our reps were doing cycles, and so they wouldn't fall over each other's feet.
Wow.
So there was a lot of coordination, a lot of communication.
Wrangling cats.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a lot of management. I mean, obviously you guys had systems in place to help accommodate that, but that's still a lot.
It was pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, who determined the initiatives of, like there's a new drug on the market? What kind of process was that like with so many people involved?
Well, that's where marketing comes into play in the home office, right? So they would look at, they would put their plan together to launch the product, and then they would identify which field, which sales group would promote what product.
There's still a lot of communication.
Oh,
and that's what I'm getting at. So like, even if marketing's got the plan together, let's just talk about one drug to get everybody on the same page and giving the same spiel. across. That's a lot. So what kind of training was that like? Was it just like, here's the thing, and learn this product, or did y'all have specific? I'm interested in the clockwork behind all of it.
Yeah.
So how would you, being over all these guys, how would you make sure everybody was up to par with what they supposed to be selling?
So we would have, there's reports now, and all that stuff.
Right.
Then we would have district meetings. So we'd have our own district meet, talk about our priorities and our plan, blah, blah, blah. And then we connect with our counterparts, and then we would ensure that the reps got together and communicated and did their stuff. Okay. Then they'd have to report back to us as to what their plan was.
Gotcha.
Okay. So there was
layers.
This was before cell phones and everything. Right?
Oh wow! Yeah,
so a lot of people are on the hard lines, and they're beating for coffee. And
unless you're rich enough to own a brick. That's awesome. Okay, that's crazy to me. All right, so what I'm seeing is painting a picture for you. So you transitioned from being a focused guy, focused on your lane, into focusing on everybody's lane, right? So was that transition hard from you, going from sales to that type of people management? Was it? I assume probably not. You seem like a pretty chameleon kind of guy, adaptable, but. I'm trying to, as far as in your career point, was that a little bit of a learning curve for you, or?
It was. And so, truth be told, I can sell, but I'm not the best salesperson. Okay.
All right.
I was successful at sales because I worked harder than a lot of people, and I could build relationships quite well. But my core selling ability is good, but it's not the best.
Okay.
So I
never heard anybody admit that one.
No, I'm
so good for you.
Yeah,
That's great. Well, everybody always says, like I said, nobody comes into a board meeting and says, "Well, I'm all right."
But you ask very successful salespeople, and you ask them how they do it, and they can't explain it because their intuition is outstanding. Their ability to read, respond, strategize, and get someone to move from here and here to break a habit, they're wizards at it. They can't explain it, but they're very good
Just
at
have
it.
a vision for it.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Okay? But so a lot of times companies hire the most successful person to become a manager.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
See it a lot, though. See it a lot, though.
Exactly. And so I had more, because my dad was a general manager and all this stuff. I learned a lot from him. So I was a better manager than a salesperson. So it was natural for me. It's just making the mind shift, thinking about how to lead people to do things. Sometimes they want to do, and other times they don't. And how do you lead them through it? So.
All right. We only have so many minutes.
Sorry.
No. This is great. No. I say that not as an insult to you. I'm thinking, how are we going to cram all this into an hour? You just have to come back.
Happy to do that.
So let's talk leading people. So you said that, but I would say based on what I'm seeing here, you are a guy that has a vision for things, though, right? Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. So let's talk about that operation. Let's talk about that vision for things. Is that something that was natural in you, or something that it was learned, or half and half? Your ability to work with people, to get a company off the ground, to get things moving in the right direction, where does that come from?
Probably my dad.
Okay.
He's an engineer. He was an engineer.
Engineers aren't always people, people folk. You know what I mean?
He had people skills and an engineer. And so I learned a lot from him, and it really did help shape the way I looked at things. And so he was the guy that when he's leading a plan of 1,000 people, he would be on the floor building relationships with everybody.
That's good.
And so I learned a lot about that.
That's wonderful. Okay.
So,
would you consider him a mentor?
Yeah, in life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, he's a great man.
That's wonderful. Okay, so me and you got a business we're going to start. It's hypothetical. Unless you want to start a business. What's the first thing you're looking for? You've got the vision for what the business is. What's the first thing that Randy does?
Find the right people.
How do you find the right people?
Well, first of all, you have to set your strategy.
Okay.
Strategy defines structure, people, everything.
Okay.
So if you have your strategy of where you want to go and the vision of where you want to go, talk about how you're going to get there. Once you've got that identified, then you need to find the right people to do that. Okay? I would rather take someone with strong character who's very conscientious and takes pride in what they do and is likable and has good people skills over someone that's got years of experience. Because we can shape them to be really effective and build experience, but it's hard to shape someone's DNA. Impossible.
That's awesome.
So you hear term, get the right people on the bus, right?
But I mean, how do I do? Keep going. I mean, but how do you determine? How do you know? Is it a gut thing? You know, so what I'm hearing is guy A, guy B. Guy A comes in, he's got the perfect resume for it. But guy B doesn't have as much of the resume, but he seems to have a desire and want to. He's taking a pride, and you really like how you communicate and talk and set things with him. You're more prone to guy B?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Even in the pharmaceutical business.
Really?
Yes.
Awesome. So you're talking about shaping people then. So how do you know a person's shapeable? Is it because of that indicator there? Okay.
So at Novartis, I had the luxury of running the entire management development process for reps who wanted to become managers of other people and leaders in the organization, right? So I work with consultants and a whole bunch of great people, and we develop process to assess people, develop, grow, deploy, check back, and all that kind of stuff. So through that process, what's critical is you have to define not only what the role is, but the success parameters for that role. Okay? What is it what is the best possible profile for that role to drive success? And that's what you recruit for. You don't just recruit for the role. A lot of people do that. And you make a mistake. I've made plenty of mistakes hiring people.
Yeah,
right?
Me too.
Right?
Yeah, it happens.
It does. It's just
part of it.
Stuff happens in people's life, and they do this, or the vision changes, and they don't like the direction. But time will figure it out, and they'll figure it out, and you'll help them figure it out sometimes. So, yeah, we always look for what the success is, a profile of a successful person at that job. And that's the determining factor. How do you train someone on passion? You can't. You can't train them on being enthused. Those are the things that
built in. It's built in. Okay. I totally see that.
Yeah.
All right.
Think about people in your past, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Who are those that just stand out?
Passion. Concern. Want to drive. Yeah. And it's naturally in there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You ever try
yeah.
lighting someone up? No,
you can't. It can't be done.
I'm sorry.
You're not. Okay. That's great. I mean, that's great. So, what do you do to, so all right, we've gone with guy B. What is it that you're doing to bring him along the journey to see the vision that you want to execute? How are you, because it's a baby step sort of thing.
Correct.
So what is it that Randy does to get those, get everybody rowing the right direction?
Correct. I'm a big management by objective guy.
Okay.
So you set goals.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
You get guy B or female B to agree to those goals and have input into the goals. And then together you map out the plan. And then they go execute. So people respect what you inspect of what you expect.
Say that one again.
Okay, hang on. I want to make sure.
Keep going.
People respect what you expect when you inspect. Trust but verify. I got the first one wrong.
That's all right.
The second one.
That's all right.
Okay. And so what happens a lot of times is people don't follow back up. And so in the day I was there, empowerment was big, right? Well, that's just let everybody do whatever they wanted. No. Empowerment is let them be creative and achieve the goals and run with the plan and do it their way. But you got to follow up and make sure that the needle's moving. And a lot of people forgot that. And so with that person, I would make sure we'd follow up on the plan. We'd get together every 6 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, and we'd talk about progress towards the plan. And we'd have numbers to validate if we're moving in the right direction or not. And then you have to talk about being a support, providing guidance, and being accessible to help them when they run across tough situations.
So what you're saying is if okay, let's do the follow-up. We're in a follow-up right now. I come to you, Randy, and we've both agreed to, 1, 2, and 3. And I've got 1 done. 2 and 3 is a little behind schedule. What does Randy do?
Randy congratulates them on getting 1 done.
Okay.
And Randy will start asking them what it is they did to achieve 1.
Okay.
Instead of start banging on number 2 right away, right? Because whatever they did in 1, they probably didn't do in 2 or 3. So then we talk about how do we take number 1 and the practice they did to number 2 and then number 3 and identify where the gaps are. And if there's a gap, then you help them figure out how to close that gap.
Okay.
So the key ever in my lifetime has always been I've been gifted where I can help the light bulb go on in someone's brain.
That's awesome.
And that's where it is. Because most of the time, you're not meeting your goal. Shame on you. Get after 2 and 3. Well, that's not going to help anybody, right? It's just going to frustrate them.
Right. Yeah.
You got to coach them. You're a coach.
Coach them. Build them up. Okay.
Make sense?
Makes total sense. Makes total sense. And as I reflect on my business, which part of it's a learning curve too, which, the thing is too, it's a generational thing. And ask me if you see that, so I come from, I'm not kidding, I come from the background of, because I've been accused of being blunt before, and because I'm very blunt, I'm very transparent to him. Transparent is a window pane. But one of the things that I've seen over the past few years is, and this isn't dissing any generational thing, it's just an understanding. But I come from the old school of things. So generationally where I sit is I consider myself an exennial because I'm actually a millennial, but I think and act and are from the school of Gen X. I'm more of a Gen X, and all of my best friends are about 10 years older than me, so it's just kind of one of these things. But I come from the old school of literally you'll have a meeting, especially back in my finance days. I've been doing design since 15 years, but old school, you'd be in a meeting like, Matt, congratulations. You did this great thing this week. Everybody, 3 cheers for Matt. and then a week later, it's like, Matt, where are we at on these numbers? And then you might hear a few obscenities, and then a few, of that type of, and maybe I was just experienced a lot of bad management. That could be it too. But either way, I come from a harder background, but I've learned that it's hard to deliver that. I've been both of those guys, deliver that way, because I've been both those guys.
Absolutely.
I've been the old school way of thing, but I've also been like, they just need some lifting up and pointing them in the right direction. But here's the question of the day on that one in my mind. Okay. So we had our one-on-one, and I, as Randy's employee, said, Randy, I nailed number 1 to the wall. Came up short number 2 on number 3. And so we do our coaching session, and Randy says, all right, I've made you see the light. This is how we do 2 and 3. I'm like, you got it. I've got it, Randy. I got 2 and 3 down. And the next session we come back, and I'm like, still fell up short, Randy, on 2 and 3. And then we do another coaching session, I'm assuming. Third time I come back, I say, Randy, still not hit number 2 and number 3. In your experience, at what point is enough coaching and it's not a right fit? When does that come about? Or have you ever had that? Maybe you're the guy that's just turning people around.
Honestly, I've had it, and it's a bad reflection on you as a leader because you let them down. So
Every time?
Not every time, okay? But a lot of times it's the manager not coaching effectively. So how I would handle the second, third, fourth attempt and still no results is you have to enter the discussion about consequence. It's missing today. Nobody talks about it.
Why is that?
Because I think everybody's so doggone busy and they're just moving on. And they don't spend the quality time, and they may not even know what consequences are. So if you don't sell number 2 and 3, right, you're holding back our whole team from winning a President's Club award. So you're a critical link. Then the third time you go, now it's on you. You've had all the support.
Done all I can do.
Okay?
Yeah.
You got one more lick at this. And if not, I'm going to have to put you on a performance improvement plan. And after that, there's termination. We don't want to go there. But the ball's in your court. You've proven you can do it in 1. I know you can do it in 2 and 3. So the ball's in your court. You do have to understand if there's something going on in their life, et cetera, but you can only go so far if you're trying to hold everybody to the same standard and accountable. But today, a lot of people don't know what consequences are. They're not looking to the future and thinking about 2 or 3 steps down the road, right? How many times have you had a toxic employee in your organization? And you let it go, and you let it go, and you let it go. All of a sudden, your culture gets shot. Everybody's working remote. Oh, go work remote during COVID, right?
Yes.
What's the first thing that's going to go when everybody starts coming back to work? Where'd our culture go?
Hadn't been working on it.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
There's something to be said for a team setting.
there is. And there's something to be said for, because I work remotely. I had global responsibilities. So you have to blend it. A blend is a really a good way to go. Because the personal element and the camaraderie of a team, you can't put a dollar value on it.
That's great. And truthful. Very truthful.
It really is.
All right, so let's talk about that. That's a great segue there. Culture. So, to give you an idea, we try to be culture warriors at Design Sons, and we've had a lot of great mentorship in regards to, everybody has a different culture code. Ours are called quarkisms and quarks. We won't get off into that. It's a scientific thing. It's a play on the Einstein thing. But number one, culture is essential. But number two, it's knowing the culture is the follow-up. But number three, the most important, is acting it out, right? So we put a lot of things in there to try to remind ourselves of this, and we're very blessed to have a great culture for the most part. We all fall short, but that's what we use to pull ourselves around back to it, right? But our number 6 and our quarks is don't let snakes in the barn. That's a direct quote from, I won't name names, but a very, very powerful business in retail at one time. And a good friend of mine told me, I said, what happened? I basically had the ability to sit down and have coffee, and I just came out with it. And I was like, what happened? You were the king of the hill for so long. Without hesitation, he looked straight at me and said, Matt, you let snakes in the barn. So how does Randy detect a snake in the barn? How does Randy know somebody's disrupting the culture? There's some obvious things, I'm sure, but is there ever a gut feeling or anything like that?
No. Well, there can be. But how I've rolled through my entire life is I give people the benefit of the doubt to start. Mm-hmm. And they're going to choose the path in which they want to take based on all the investment and energy and everything we put into them. Mm-hmm. So I'm a huge believer in past behavior predicts future behavior. Mm-hmm. So it's the behavior that you identify that's out of whack. Mm-hmm. It's not the person. It's just what's coming out of that person. Mm-hmm. And so they will help you understand if they're a snake or not based on some of the actions they take or don't take. Mm-hmm. And when you identify those, you have to confront them on those behaviors, right? Mm-hmm. And either you nip it in the bud or it continues to go. Mm-hmm. So what that person's telling you, not only did you let the snakes in the barn, you let them eat the mice and everything else. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
Right, absolutely.
So that's what they're really saying. Mm-hmm. So, and I see that a lot with leaders today is they're relatively young at leading other people. They don't have a great experience base. Mm-hmm. And the training of how to be an effective leader is not like it used to be. Not saying in the past was the best, but I can tell you when you became a leader, mm-hmm. manager, leader, whatever they called it, mm-hmm. you went through a lot of leadership training. And I'm seeing new people in corporations today, there's not even a really assessment process to identify who's going to be selected as a manager.
Really? Mm-hmm.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Because that person leads 10, 12, how many people underneath them? And if you got a snake or a bad actor there, mm-hmm. they impact a lot of lives.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that happen.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's always the behavior that you will see where people are on point or off point.
Okay.
And you can't, and what too many people do is they let that behavior go and go and go. Oh, I'll get to it. Or they're too valuable right now. What we found, especially at Moxy, is when someone leaves or you ask them to leave, that's the time to upgrade. Upgrade opportunity.
Upgrade opportunity.
Every single time. And it's amazing how we've upgraded every time we've done it.
That's fantastic. And I can see, I know what you're talking about. We've seen that too.
Right?
Yeah, we've seen that too. And it's very, it's a great process too. At the end of the day, you just want people to be happy and being successful, whether they're with you or somebody else.
Exactly.
But it's having an understanding of, who's the right fit. And to me, it's usually I try to assume good intent. I really do. There's a gut thing too. Like you start to worry because you see some behaviors. You're like, and that is the hardest to combat because you don't want it to set a precedent up here or here, for the individual. But let's be real. Let's get real.
Yeah.
that mentoring, because essentially what you're doing is you're talking about trying to mentor someone to go the right direction, to be a better employee and really a better person, in regards to team atmosphere. That is not easy. And not everybody's equipped to do that either. So sounds like what you're saying is in the management, you have to have somebody that has the vision of that. has an understanding of people, and then has a way of directing that person's flow. That's a lot of responsibility.
It is. And the manager, there are influences that impact them as well, or the leader of an organization, right? So they alter too. So, and then other people that work with them, so you've got this alteration going on, and then there's factors that they go through, and so all of a sudden it becomes out of whack a little bit in a multitude of ways. And so you have to adapt and adjust. And that's where I see a lot. What I'm seeing a lot today is this whole idea of change leadership is not talked about much at all. And everything we're doing in this fast-paced world and business world we're in, change leadership is critical. It's not critical. It's making change is easy. It's leading people effectively through that change is the challenge.
You're getting deep today, Randy.
Man, it's
deep.
I'm sorry. It's
no,
the truth.
no, that's the truth. That's what we need.
It is.
That's
the
what we're
truth.
here for. Okay. So we're, if you can't believe we're almost the hour is almost up, but this has been great. Tons of wisdom nuggets. Let's switch gears just real quick.
Okay.
So I want to talk about two things before we sign off. One, what's your best advice for a young entrepreneur out there trying to start a business? And what does he need to be looking out for? What does he need to have in his mind and his heart to be successful? That's a very loaded and open-ended question, I realize. But you're just the man to answer it, Randy.
No. He or she, they have to have a lot of grit. You cannot give up. You have to show up and get after it. And you have to be able to learn on the fly, because your best laid plan is not going to work. It just is not.
It's true.
I've been to so many investment things in the entrepreneur world in Northwest Arkansas, and they teach them at business school, show me the hockey stick, here's revenue, right? The reality is it does this, and hopefully the trend is up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you got to show up, you got to work hard, and you got to have a lot of grit and be confident in yourself.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. You said it. You said it like a pro. Well, it's the truth. The truth of that question in my mind is very basic and very straightforward. But that's part of the reason why this podcast exists, and those that listen enough know, because there's a lot of guys out there that are, it might as well be a 12. If you follow mine, 12-step program. Everybody's path is different. Everybody's. There's some guys that literally they're in business for a year, and they see success like no other. But when that happens, you better thank God that happened to you.
Absolutely.
And you better do everything you can to hang on to it. But you did that without the school of hard knocks. The truth of the matter is entrepreneurship is a school of hard knocks. And you just never...
Absolutely.
If some of the opportunities that we have today at Design Steins, if I had been given those opportunities 10 years ago, we would have flopped it. No question. Tanked it. Failure.
Totally get it.
It's those hard knocks that teach you.
Absolutely.
And, everybody has a different journey and everybody has a different success story. Some people get it after a couple of years. Some people it takes 30 years. And some people, they just get by. That's the truth of the marketplace.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Last question.
Uh-oh.
Now, we got more time. Depends on how long your answer is, Randy.
The pressure's on.
Yeah, the pressure's on. Okay, so young sales associates or even experienced sales associates, what is your best advice for somebody trying to make the sale?
When you sell a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's not the case. Right?
Right.
Totally not.
I love you. You got so many great sayings.
It is not the case. And so what I would encourage people to do is try understanding the best they can of who they're trying to sell to and build a relationship with them, a professional relationship to understand what really makes them tick. Because your rationale for buying is different than mine. Your reason for purchasing is different than mine. And the salespeople who can identify those hot buttons, the real hot button, are the ones that are going to be successful. So continuously seek for what that hot button is. And once you find it, you position solutions to meet that, take care of that hot button. That's the best way I knew how to change habits, is if I knew what their hot button was, and I learned it from the receptionists, from their nurses. I didn't just learn it from them, the doctors. It was the whole group around them. Oh, he loved cars. Boom, that's easy, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to make more money to buy more cars. The hot button.
Hot button. Where's the gap?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. Last question. This is the last question. This is one I ask some of the guests. Sometimes I don't, but I just feel like I should ask you, Mr. Hurban. What gives Randy Hurban joy in life?
That's a good one. Family, faith, and seeing our grandkids. We've got 4 grandsons.
Whoa, 4 grandsons.
Yes.
Wild time.
From 14 to 3. Okay.
All right.
And so all the kids call me Dude because I wanted to be called Papa Dude.
So that's where Mimi and Dudes come about.
Correct. So I find joy when the 2-year-old called me Doo-Doo.
That's awesome.
It's priceless. So
amazing.
To see what the kids can do, right, and to see your family and your kids do well and be successful, not just in the business world, but also with their family. And that my wife and I, through our life, we moved multiple times, right? And she's been the rock that's always was there for the kids while I'm traveling all over the place. And to see the whole unit really work now, and that the legacy you build, you can see it come into life.
That's awesome.
And that brings you a lot of joy.
I bet it does.
Yeah.
I can see that right now, but as a guy that has a long history and that's known for, at least to the connections that I know that knew you before our introduction, I know that you like to invest in people. You like to invest in people. And so I can only imagine how much, knowing the investment that you've had just in the workplaces, there's no telling what kind of investment you've had into your family. So I can totally see you love seeing that life tree grow.
Yes.
That's great. Well, Randy, I can't thank you enough for coming on.
No.
We didn't get to half of what I wanted to, but will you come again?
Oh, I'd love to.
All right. We'll plan on it. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate you, Randy.
All right, man.